Mitt Romney making moves to reassemble the campaign team for 2016. He is trying to get everybody back together. He was busy on the phone yesterday. That according to many different sources. Trying to get everybody, trying to get all of his ducks in a row. Called former aides, donors, other supporters over the weekend and on Monday in a concerted push to signal his seriousness about launching a 2016 presidential campaign. Romney's message, as he told one senior Republican, that he will almost certainly will, whatever that means. How vague? Stop making all these vague statements. Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, he will almost certainly will. What would be his third bid for the White House? His aggressive outreach came as Representative Paul Ryan, Romney's 2012 vice presidential running mate, the newly installed chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, announced Monday that he would not seek the presidency in 2016. Romney's activity indicates that his declaration of interest to Friday to a group of 30 donors in New York was more than a release of a trial balloon. Instead, it was the start of a deliberative effort by the 2012 nominee to carve out space for himself in an emerging 2016 field that will also likely include Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Well, now that's a name I can get behind there. Romney has worked the phones over the past few days, calling an array of key allies to discuss his potential campaign. Among them was Paul Ryan, who Romney phoned over the weekend and to inform him personally of his plans to probably run. Ryan, according to the Washington Post, was encouraging, at least according to people with knowledge of the phone call. Other Republicans with whom Romney spoke: KFYO, Rob Portman, former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty, former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, and former Missouri Senator Jim Talent, and Jason Chaffetz as well, congressman out of Utah. So a lot of key people there that he spoke to. In the conversations, Romney said that he is intent on running to the right of Bush. Interesting. Romney has tried to assure conservatives that he shares their values on immigration and tax policy, that should he enter the race, he will not forsake party orthodox. So Romney going to run to the right of Jeb Bush. That could be quite interesting because that's where everyone else will basically run as well. And not that Jeb Bush is this big liberal. He's just not as conservative as I think a lot of people would like him to be. Now, Marco Rubio, who was once considered one of the big favorites for 2016, it looks like he's going to move on to something else. He may run for governor of Florida. In 2018? And, Rubio's young. He can do whatever he wants. Ted Cruz yesterday, Ted Cruz, when he heard about Romney getting back in, Ted Cruz didn't seem thrilled with Mitt Romney getting back into presidential politics. According to Politico, Texas Senator Ted Cruz took a swipe at Romney on Monday, saying that Republicans' path to the presidency does not cut through the mushy middle. Cruz was asked about Romney at the Heritage Foundation. Quote, "There are some people who believe that a path to the Republican victory is to turn to the mushy middle. It's to blur distinctions," Cruz said. "I think recent history has shown us that it's not a path to success. It doesn't work. It's a failed electoral strategy." Cruz said, "I very much agree with President Ronald Reagan with that the way we win is by painting with bold colors and not pale pastels. And I think that's going to be a debate Republicans are going to have over the next 2 years. It's certainly a debate I intend to participate in vigorously." Which that sounds like to me Ted Cruz is going to run. So this 2016 field is huge for Republicans. Democrats, they've got Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren, she keeps saying she's not going to run for president. I don't believe that. But those are the two choices for the Democrats. They really don't have anybody else. I guess Martin O'Malley, out of Maryland, may run for president for the Democrats. But that's about it. And with Clinton, with Warren, and with O'Malley, boy, that is the far left of the Democratic fringe. That is the far, far left. Hillary would actually be seen as a moderate. I know, as shocking as that would be, she would be seen as the moderate in that race. Because Martin O'Malley and really Elizabeth Warren are far to the left. And so the problem that I see developing here for the Republicans, well, there are a few. This whole GOP civil war that we've heard about, it's going to happen in the Democratic Party as well, but it won't be as pronounced. And why is that? Because the media won't let it happen. It'll be a squabble. It'll be the Democratic squabble of 2016 between Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren. It'll be the squabble between those two. Just a few differences. A few degrees of difference between the two. Over the Republican Party, it'll be played up as massive warfare. That they all hate each other, that they're all terrible candidates, and that none of them should be president of the United States. That's how it'll be played out. I think it's best for Scott Walker and for Rick Perry. I think the field is almost set up perfectly for Scott Walker and for Rick Perry. Two governors with very successful track records, conservative track records, maybe not uber conservative, but with Scott Walker, I mean, how many times has he beaten Democrats and the teachers' unions? I mean, the guy is awesome. The Democrats can't beat him. You know, you gotta love that. I mean, he comes across as a very, average person. The average guy. He doesn't seem elitist. He doesn't come across as and Mitt Romney does come across as, money bags. Nothing wrong with that. God bless him. He made a ton of money. But Scott Walker comes across as this tough guy, average guy who knows how to talk to everybody. Rick Perry obviously has just a ton of experience, has led a pretty large state, and has done a pretty good job. If people will get over the oops moment, I think you have a really good candidate there. I don't know if the uber conservative can win in 2016. I don't know if the uber conservative can win a Republican primary in 2016. With Rand Paul, he's got to deal with his dad. He's got to deal with Ron Paul. And I know there are a lot of people out there who love Ron Paul, think Ron Paul is awesome. But Ron Paul, he's said some crazy things in the past. And how much of that does Rand Paul agree with? And I'm sorry, right? If I look at the 2016 field, my favorites right now would be a Scott Walker or a Rick Perry. To go up against someone like Hillary Clinton, it would be one of those two. Two people who have a list of accomplishments, who have very good track records, and have shown toughness. And right now, I think Scott Walker kind of leads the pack for me. And I know it's early, but Mitt Romney, a third time, I wish he wouldn't. And it's not because I hate Mitt Romney or wish Mitt Romney never would have gotten the nomination. I just think that Mitt Romney is looked at right now as one of those party elders and as someone who could help out a lot on the campaign trail and as someone that we could all point to as being the guy who should have won, the guy who was right about all of these things. If he runs again and doesn't get the nomination, it's that guy who didn't know when to stop running for president. It's the guy who really thinks every single time a presidential election runs around, he thinks he can win it all because he has a bunch of money and has a bunch of good friends. That's how the American public would look at Mitt Romney. Right now, they sort of respect Mitt Romney. I think a large percentage of the population kind of looks at Mitt Romney and goes, man, we wish we would have elected that guy. That guy knows exactly what he was talking about. Man, we were wrong. So I kind of wish you'd stay out of it. But right now, I think the field is set up perfectly for Scott Walker. If he decides to run, which I think he will. 770-5790, toll free, 1-800-687-0790. More on this when we come back. Now, having said all of that in the last segment, it's still really, really early. It's still really, really early on in the process. And I have the right to just throw out everything I just said later on. But right now, I think you have to like Scott Walker and Rick Perry. I think you have to like the governors right now, right? You know, governors who have been there, they've been in the trenches, they've governed, they've gotten stuff done. I think you kind of have to like that. Mitt Romney? Oh, I like Mitt Romney, but no. We've seen what happens with, the release of 3 movies. All of that, just stay away, Mitt. Mitt Romney would serve the Republican Party well, just campaigning and talking about conservative values, Republican values, and trying to win over the American people. Yeah, Mitt Romney would do a really good job, I think, at what Sarah Palin attempts to do. Sarah Palin, much more of a polarizing figure than Mitt Romney. But if you had Mitt Romney traveling around the United States, talking about how we could get America back on track, just with the Republican Party in general, and then focus on a candidate as we move forward, I think that helps out the Republican Party a lot. I think that goes a long way in defeating a Hillary Clinton or, Lord help us, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, really. If you can make Hillary Clinton, anyone who makes Hillary Clinton look like a moderate, that should scare you. And that would be Martin O'Malley, and that would really be Elizabeth Warren. Rick Santorum, old sweater vest, taking a few shots at Ted Cruz and Rand Paul. Quote, do we really want someone with this little of experience? Santorum asked, referring to Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, and even Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, also in his first term. Quote, and the only experience they basically, not so much Rubio, but Cruz and Paul, because I don't think Rubio is going to go, but his bomb throwing. Do we really only want somebody who's a bomb thrower with no track record of any accomplishments? That from Rick Santorum. Rand Paul's top strategist responded that the party should not take advice from a politician who was soundly defeated in 2006. Santorum said of Common Core that he loves talking about Common Core. He loves talking about conservatives. He likes talking about higher education. Rick Santorum is trying to redefine himself. He's trying to make a comeback, and he's trying to redefine himself than just the evangelical guy. Because for a lot of evangelicals, they had 2 choices. They had Mike Huckabee and they had Rick Santorum. And everyone else was a little worried about Rick Santorum because he just sort of spoke to the evangelicals. And he really didn't speak to anybody else in the Republican Party. Well, now Rick Santorum is trying to get away from that. He still has his evangelical side, but he's trying to broaden his topics. He's trying to broaden his appeal within the Republican Party. Rick Santorum seems like a nice guy, but we've seen this movie before. Just like with Mitt Romney, we've seen it before. It's not going to work. It's just like with Mike Huckabee. Let's get some new faces. Let's stop trying to go back to the guys who already lost over and over and over again. If you've lost once and you weren't seriously considering another run, okay, then you can come back, you can run again. But for Rick Santorum, for Mike Huckabee, for some of these folks, it's just, you've had your moment, you had your chance. It's not going to happen. Let's leave it up to some of the new guys. Now the question is, does he bring up a point with Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. Do you worry about the inexperience of the potential nominees? Do you worry that Ted Cruz, still first term, Rand Paul, same, Marco Rubio, same, they don't have a lot of experience out there? Do you worry about that? Or do you look at it and go, I need a little bit, need some new voices in there? Why not? Something that those three will absolutely go through if they all decide to run for president in 2016. We'll be right back.